Okay, so here we are again. It's always such a pleasure. Chapter 8 of Project Horizon's Long Roads. So, overall thoughts on this chapter is it's more of the same, and I mean that in a good way. Kind of like with prices. I don't think it's quite as like hard hitting, at least for me, as play is, but it's continuing the trend from prices of Blackjack saying she wants to do better and actually making good on that. On top of that, I feel like we do get some really interesting bits of character from the Sentinels, both from a lucidity lens standpoint and like a face value standpoint. Overall, another good chapter. Like I said, when Blackjack says, "Man, I want to start doing better," it's like the story said, "Oh shit, let's get good too." Oh, in terms of the basic plot, you've got ponies are trying to collect on the contract. Sorry, I was trying to say that. I was gonna say the debt, and it's like it's not a debt; it's more like an offer. But they're trying to collect on the bounty to kill Blackjack. So she and the Sentinel sneak out of Megamart under some disguises, and it's a pretty fun scene. As they're traveling, they end up going to, I believe it's Stockyard. And there's this one line, because it's Huffington, it rains all the fucking time. There's this one line, Blackjack's like, like what was it? The rain turned the ground into a light soup. I just really liked that description. I was like, that's kind of an interesting way of saying, like, yeah, we're walking through mud. It's like a light soup. I kind of like that. One thing that ends up happening, I think it's before they get to Stockyard, is Blackjack. Sorry, brain stop for a second. Blackjack finally uses the memory orb she got from the lake. So I had said in an earlier chapter that this is still early on in the story. It's halfway through book one, a tenth of the way through the story as a whole. I thought she actually saw the orb a little bit earlier. I thought she had seen it when she found it. So I was thinking around chapter 3, 4, 5 at the latest. It's not till chapter 8. But it is the orb with Big Macintosh and his girlfriend, Maripony. And they're interacting. It's before, I believe it's called Shattered Hoof Ridge or something like that, which is where Big Mac gets assassinated. It's their last conversation together. And Blackjack is in Maripony. She's not in Big Macintosh. I remembered it the other way around. That's my bad. But she's in Maripony and she's looking up at the stars and she's just like, sorry, like I can't think of but I'm thinking of the ending of Worm, just so many stars. But just looking at the stars and being mesmerized by them and how beautiful they are, which I don't even know if I wrote this down, but knowing Project Horizons and the narrative impact and thematics, I guess, of the stars, like that's kind of neat, I guess. But she sees the stars, she feels for the first time through Maripony's perspective, real, genuine love. Which is not something she's ever felt before, and honestly, I don't think she ever considered as a possibility before. And having that, even temporarily, it kind of hurts her. She's like, I didn't know that was possible. I want to be able to feel like that again. I don't really know how. So you've got that. You've got, do I want to talk about it in the big picture segment, or I just want to talk about the orb now? I also just go ahead and get into the details of it. I mean, I kind of am anyways, but anyways, sorry. There's a bit in the orb when Big Mac and Maripony are talking to each other. And Maripony brings up to him, he's like, hey, have you told me about your sister? Have you told your sister about me yet? And Big Mac is like, no, not yet. Like, I'll get to it. And the first time I read this chapter, I remember thinking to myself, okay, I can see this from a neutral standpoint of this is someone in a relationship to someone whose family is very important to them. And that person's family is one of the most important people on the planet. So it kind of makes sense of like, hey, like your sister's really important and I know you two are really close. Like, have you told her about me yet? Have you run it by her? Because I don't want there to be any trouble. Like, I get that. But the way it read to me came across as more of, I know your sister. Your sister and I have a history. Whether it's a good history or a bad history, we have a history, and she needs to know about this. And I'm kind of assuming you're the one that's gonna tell her. Have you told her yet? And it was that part in particular that when I read it, I thought, this is Twilight Sparkle. This is Twilight Sparkle in disguise. Because A, she has a relationship with Applejack. Like, they've been best friends for fucking ever. So that, like, hey, dude, have you told her about us? Makes a lot of sense to me. Even the name, because Maripony is the location where the, sorry, not wartime technology, where the Ministry of Magic, Arcane Sciences is. And it's also, like, the goddess's location. And I remember thinking to myself, that sounds like the exact kind of nickname, or, like, fake name that Twilight would come up with. Like, oh, I need an alias for when I'm going out about. Because that also sounds like something she would do, is when I need to go out, whether it's with my boyfriend or not, I need to be in some kind of disguise, because people know who the fuck I am. I'm a ministry mayor. I'm the student of Celestia. I'm an element of harmony. I've saved Equestria. I think this takes place... When does the war happen? I want to say before season 2? Maybe some point after, like in the middle of season 2? So that'd be Nightmare Moon. Theoretically Discord. So she's at least saved Equestria once. Maybe twice. I don't think the Crystal Empire and the Changelings aren't in this or the original story. So I would say season 2 hadn't ended yet. So she's at least saved Equestria once, maybe twice. People know who the fuck Twilight Sparkle is. So her saying, look, I just don't want to be recognized going out, especially with the war going on. I don't want unnecessary attention. I don't want to be assassinated. I need to use magic to make myself a disguise and a fake identity when I, like, need to clear my head, when I need to go grocery shopping, hang out with my boyfriend. Makes sense to me. And her fake name being, I just use the place where I work, feels like the kind of thing Twilight Sparkle would come up with. And so I read it and thought, that's what's going on here. Now maybe this is his OC. If it wouldn't be the only time he shipped one of the main six with one of his OCs in this story. Shout out to Vanity and Goldenblood, I guess. There was a part of me that also thought, maybe it's Trixie, which would be kind of interesting and kind of fun. And also the Maripony name would make sense. I don't remember if it's said in the orb, but I think later Maripony is described as being blue. And I'm like, oh, like Trixie, that actually would kind of make sense. But I was so convinced that she was actually Twilight Sparkle that after reading this chapter for the first time, I said, okay, I'm going to look it up. Because this feels, I genuinely feel like I figured this out. And I feel like it's something I'm not going to get confirmation of until way later in the story. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be dragged out. But I don't want to sit here and be, it's like, who is she? What's this gonna be? When I already know. Let me just figure this shit out. And I remember Googling it, or like TV tropes or some shit. But I looked for it and I got my confirmation that, yes, Maripony is Twilight Sparkle. No bullshit. I also had it spoiled for me at that point, though, that she is, Blackjack is their descendant. So that was something I got spoiled for me. I'm not going to fault anybody for that. That's on me 1000% for looking for it. But I will give myself some props for figuring that out. I always kind of felt a little proud of that. But that's the Maripony orb. There's also, I think, that little part of me that, because I kept hearing the name Marigold and it sounded close enough, it's like, is this like a typo and it's supposed to be her? Because her thing is also going into space and seeing the stars and all that shit. So, not quite, but in its own weird way, they're definitely related and connected. So there's that. Let's see. back to the Sentinels. The Sentinels go to Stockyard, and they solve a conflict between the ponies there and the Crusaders, because the Crusaders are accused of thieving. I think it's of thieving Brahmin. And it's like, no, we're not doing it. It's a dragon. All right. Y'all ready to go kill a dragon? So Blackjack and the Sentinels go and kill some dragons. After they kill the dragons, like, all right, we cleared the Crusaders' names. The Crusaders end up traveling with them for a little bit, like the end of this chapter and the start of the next one. And Blackjack ends up getting accosted by a group of the ponies from Stockyard saying, it's not that we don't appreciate you taking care of the problem. It's not that we don't appreciate you intervening so we didn't have to kill some kids. That's a mighty large bounty on your head, security. We could do a lot with that. Please come with us quietly. No one else has to get hurt. And Blackjack, who just killed a dragon. And there is this really cool thing where after she kills it, and she just looks up at the Crusaders and the Stockyard ponies like, so, who wants to collect that bounty? Like, that's fucking great. Like, it's shit like that. Again, I will love Blackjack. Blackjack fights back, but explicitly kills none of them. She fights to, like, wound, and, like, not seriously wound, but, like, do a little bit of damage, and to disarm. I'm not gonna hurt you, and I'm not going to kill you. This is your chance. This is your warning. Do not press the issue. So those ponies end up backing off. P21 and Glory are then, like, woken up by this. I mean, Glory they just swapped watches. Watch shifts, not watches. And both of them are incredibly mad at her. P21 saying, actually, I don't remember if this is quite at the end of 8 or if it's the start of 9, because the start of 9 is Blackjack going, dude, I don't understand friends. I'm bad at this whole friendship thing. I've never really had one before. Apparently there's, like, these rules and expectations, and I've already fucked them up with both of these dudes. Whoops. P21 is angry because, not that Blackjack handled the situation by herself, the fact that she let them go afterwards, because to him, if they attack us, if someone attacks my friends, their life is forfeit. And I kind of expect it to be the same way. If someone attacks you, I'm killing them. If someone attacks Glory, I'm killing them. That's how we do this shit. Which, again, like, yeah, that's definitely a reflection. I guess we're kind of getting to the character bits now, but that it makes sense if he's the reflection of Blackjack's anger and her wanting revenge on people that have hurt her for Steel Rain in particular, for the incident. Also, after that, after he kind of does this rant, which you've got Glory and the Crusaders watching, and one of them literally just pulls out popcorn, Blackjack just goes, so that means we are friends? Yeah, I guess we are. Like, it's fucking great. And I think one of the Crusaders like, just kiss already. I'm like, you're gonna have to wait a bit, Bucko, for that shit to happen, but we'll get there. And then Glory is mad at Blackjack, not because she let them go, but because, like, why'd you do that on your own? Like, you knew they were coming, right? Like, when you came up to me and said, hey, I'm up early, let's swap shifts, you did that because you knew they were there, right? Yeah, and you intended to take care of that by yourself without any of us helping or even knowing what was going on? Yeah, it's pretty fucked up, Blackjack. You're not supposed to do that. That's what friends are for. We rely on each other. We trust each other. Don't keep secrets and shit like that from me. Like, yeah, that's definitely not going to come back to bite their relationship later. No sirree, Bob. But issues that Blackjack has with being a friend aside, like I said, this is another chapter of her doing better. She didn't see all those ponies attack her and go, Red is dead. Let's take care of business. She took care of business, but she didn't kill anybody. You see her actively trying to be better and to do better. Good shit, Blackjack. So, getting more into the characters, and a lot, again, I kind of said a decent chunk of this already. With Blackjack, like I said, we see her genuine growth. It Ain't Red is Dead No More. She does play a bit of revisionist history, though, when, like, talking to the Crusaders, and, like, hey, she's the one that got Scootle killed. The way Blackjack describes it is, yeah, so, like, what happened is, like, to herself, she's not saying it out loud, but it's, there was a kid, and the kid was scared, and the kid warned me, and I didn't listen to her. And she died because of me, and, like, my ignorance and my inexperience. Like, that's not untrue, Blackjack. And I feel like that's what the intent of the Scootle kill is. And if it's just straight up written that way, I'd like it a lot more. I like the kill, and I like the impact it has. But it's that malicious stupidity. It's not just, she was warning me and I didn't take her seriously. It's my friend over here who I have said, hey, you seem to know what's right. I think you're a good moral guide, which, yeah, like, even at this point in the story, he's like, no, you gotta kill everybody, is really funny. It's her saying, you know what, I'm not gonna listen to you. I don't think you're worth listening to. I'm gonna do what I want to do anyways. Fuck you for even have the gall to say that I should do this. She conveniently leaves that part out, and I don't know how intentional that is. Like, I don't know if that's somber going, I'm gonna not bring that part up because, man, that part's really shitty of Blackjack, and I don't want to do that. Fair. Or alternatively, if it's a Blackjack in her own way trying to make herself more sympathetic and still culpable, but less culpable, I guess. I mean, no, she's still just as culpable, but it's, what's the word? Like, depraved, malignant, that's it. A little bit less malignant heart, to use some legalese there. I find that a little bit interesting. It's like, you're taking accountability, which is great. Not 100% accountability, I suppose, but it's something I thought I would bring up. Something I did talk about is, I like that moment of her in the orb contemplating love and what that's like, and how it's, again, something she's never experienced and almost never really considered. That's like, it's not just sex and being horny or being bored, it's wanting to have genuine connections with people and wanting to make a lasting relationship. And I remember, I guess this is kind of a big picture thing. Later on in the story, I don't remember exactly when this manifests, in her mind, she's like, I've got this vision of the future. And it's of me, P21, and Glory. And we're all just growing old together. Like, we've got this house. I don't remember if it's, like, specifically Star House probably is. It's like, we're at our little house in Chapel. And we've got some foals running around. And I'm with the two people I love most. And this is what I want. This is what I'm fighting for. Yes, I'm fighting to do better and be better. I'm fighting to, I guess, save the soul of the wasteland as much as I can and try to make it a better place where people can live, because that's my job, is security. But what do I want? Well, gosh, I love that scene. That's in chapter 10, when she's just having all of these, like, flashbacks, like, what do you want, Blackjack? What do you want, Blackjack? What do you want, Blackjack? Like, different people asking her that. I think it's a really good scene. What does she want? I want to grow old with the people I love and raise a family. And she doesn't get that. And really thinking about that, like, man, that's really sad. That's really fucked. Wow, what a happy story this is. I mean, in terms of the lucidity lens, I don't really know what to say about that necessarily. Just, love is something, I mean, I guess in a way of her saying, like, you know, I've never really experienced love, and it's something I've never thought about given what happened to her. It's, I don't know, maybe her own way, she feels that she's unlovable, whether that's related to the incident or it's like she's kind of always felt that way and the incident made it worse. I don't know. Poor girl, man. Hashtag poor girl. Getting into the other two, P21 talked earlier about his anger, and that's what he represents when it comes to Blackjack. Sorry, I was talking, but I was kind of zoning out at the same time. Let me try again. The first thing I really want to talk about with P21 here, it's pretty short, but I noticed how much the Mirror Pony orb affected him because like Blackjack knows. She's like, yeah, I told him about that, and then how, the love they shared, and Twilight was pregnant, and it was just like wonderful, and it was beautiful, and the vibe kind of seemed to be that Glory's like kind of like, oh, like that's kind of sweet, and then P21's like, that's the most beautiful fucking thing I've ever heard. And there is the part of me that wonders, and I brought this up in a previous chapter, how much did he care about duct tape? Because the way it's presented, like the way I kind of interpret it is, there was something there on his side. Maybe he didn't love her. Like, I genuinely don't think he was capable of loving her because of all of his issues. But it's about as close as he could have gotten to love while still in 99, at least with a mare. But he was almost kind of close to having a life with her and having a family with her. Now, is the Overmare ever going to keep her promise? No. But it was something that Duct Tape believed and told him about. And to a degree, I think it is something he wanted. And maybe not necessarily with her, but to be able to go out and be free and have a family and have, at the very least, she was someone who loved him. And I think he genuinely appreciated that. And I feel like him hearing about the orb. Now, maybe it just reminds him of his lover that he lost. Maybe it is like, I was so close to having this with her, and then it was stripped away. Or maybe he's thinking of both. I could easily see him thinking of both. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. This is the chapter where he actively starts using explosives. Because he uses it in a previous one where he throws a grenade. He's like, no, like, this is my thing now. I don't want to be useless. I don't want to be sitting here and you two are fighting and I'm just in the corner going, I'm not going to shoot anybody because guns are beneath me kind of shit. And obviously, it's more nuanced than that. But he's like, I want to be able to fight, but I still don't trust myself with a gun. I feel like if I am holding a gun, I might do something stupid. Explosives, you can't just pull the trigger. You have to be calm. You have to be calculating. That is something I can do. Let me help. Trust that this is the best way for me to do it. Which leads into the relationship with Blackjack. And the fact that he represents her anger because that's what he is. He is just this... I think Glory even described it as like this barely suppressed like ball of rage or something like that. It makes it makes reading his interactions with her so fucking interesting. Because you can see the desire to forgive and make amends. When he's able to tell her, it's like, no, like, if anyone hurts my friends, their life is forfeit because you are my friend. Or in some of these other moments, like, was it in Play? Maybe it was in, like, Chapter 5. But when they're talking, he's like, hey, does that mean we're friends now? No, but we're closer. Maybe, like, that much. That much? Hey, I'll take it. It's progress. And he kind of smiles. Like, he's starting to see her. And not even starting. Like, he has been seeing her. It's like, this is not just the murderous security mare who took the love of my life from me. She's her own person. Her own very, very flawed person. But a genuine person. And as many mistakes as I see her make, I see how much they affect her. She's not a monster. As much as I saw her as that, I kind of still want to see her as that. I can't. But also, she killed the person I love most. Like he was nothing. Like he was a bug that needed to be squashed. Every time I look at her, as much as I want to see her as Blackjack, as security, as my friend, I see what she did to him. And I just can't. And I find that dichotomy really interesting. Even saying that out loud, is that kind of how Blackjack sees Steel Rain in her real life? Like, this is someone who's my friend, and I trusted him. And we were like, I don't remember if in Lucidity they mentioned if there was some kind of romantic relationship, or if there was romantic interest on her part and then she was taken advantage of and betrayed, or if this was an acquaintance that, you know, hurt her. But maybe that's kind of part of it too. It's like, you know, I want to be able to move past it. I want to be able to interact with him on a human level, but I can't, because every time I see him, I think of what he did, and I just get angry, and I don't trust myself around him because I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to act. Am I going to scream? Am I going to wince? The way that, like, anytime she touches him, he'll just, like, cower and whimper, or he'll just get pissed off. It's the shit like this where I'm like, this has to be intentional, right? Like, I know I feel like I'm kind of grasping at straws here, but at the same time, I'm like, am I? Because I feel like so many elements just feel like they fall into place. I don't know, maybe it's just Narratavia at work, but there's really a lot here. And then, aside from P21, we've got my girl Glory. Sorry, I was just looking at my big picture notes here at the bottom. I just wanted to check something real quick. Yeah, okay, I do have that part about Yellow River here. Sorry, just wanted to make sure I talked about it in this chapter. So, getting into Glory, there's the scene where she's doing her diary entries, which, like the Maripony orb, I thought was earlier in the story. I thought that was also around, like, chapter 5. It's chapter 8, my bad. And I remember this from the first time I read it very specifically because this kind of never happened again. And I was like, so is she, like, is this a personal diary entry? Is she making a report to the Enclave about, like, hey, like, I'm traveling with security, this is what she's like? Because the idea of either one is interesting. Like, I am still making my reports because it's important, or this is Glory's personal diary of how she's feeling, and you see how her character is changing and evolving throughout the story. But I don't think it's ever seen again, and I kind of wish it would have. But you get the diary entries, and first she's like, okay, Blackjack, I don't understand her. This bitch makes no sense to me. She's, like, really vulgar and really violent. And so I'm like, oh, okay, she's like a wasteland pony. She's a piece of shit. But also she's really nice and caring and really, like, funny and fun. So, I don't know. How am I supposed to think of this person? Like, I see her talking to kids and saying, like, I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna do everything I can to protect these kids, and that's good. I just saw her kill 40, like, yesterday. And I get it, but she still didn't have to do it. I was saying we shouldn't. So sometimes it's okay to do it, and other times it's not. I don't get it. I'm so confused. And then there's the other guy. There's B21, and his self-control is admirable, but I'm worried about the source. Like, this dude is... I can tell he's just angry all the time, and I don't know if there's a specific target. I hope it's not me, but there's someone or something that he just hates, and he needs to get this out of his system. And I'm scared for when he does. What the fuck am I doing out here, man? But yeah, then she. I think it's at the end of this chapter when Blackjack's like, "Hey, Glory, are we friends?" I'm not sure, but like I want to be. I'd like to be. She talks about how she's super anxious, but she's adapting to the world around her, which again from the lucidity lens, like is that kind of how Blackjack felt after that? Like I don't know. That one feels like a bit of a reach. There's this one line when Blackjack says something about like, when Deuce finds me, he's going to like rape me with one of his cannons because of course they talk about that. Which again, from the lucidity lens, it makes sense that sexual assault is something very prevalent. Blackjack is terrified he will do it to her. And Glory, her immediate response is, well, given the size of the cannon and actually given the size of your parts, I don't think he would actually be able to do that. Like, if we're being technical and reasonable about this, there's no way that... Oh, you were joking. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Like, it's one of those jokes where, like, I feel really bad for laughing at this, given the subject matter. But it is kind of funny in the way it's written. Like, just the way I can imagine Glory saying it, and like the way it was kind of said in the audiobook. Like, it's fucked, but it's kind of funny. But so, damn, we're only like 30 minutes in. Like, we're gonna get through this one pretty quick. So now get some of the big picture moments. The HMS Celestia, Steel Rain, and Crunchy Carrots are all mentioned and or name dropped. There's this line when Blackjack, it's before she ends up meeting up with the Crusaders here, but in her new armor, there's a Crusader patch sewn on. She's like, all right, one day I'm going to pay back the Crusaders, for everything they did to me. And there's another part when she's like, man, if I have to kill Crusaders, I would rather just like give Deuce my head right now. And I'm like, okay. In terms of paying back the Crusaders, that's something that happens here. I don't think that's necessarily like foreshadowing lucidity. But the, man, if I had to kill Crusaders, I'd rather Deuce take me now. Like, okay. Let's talk about Yellow River. The way I remember it being explained is after the Yellow River facility, Blackjack's in one of her I'm angry and I'm pissed off and I'm going to kill everything around me kind of modes. And she comes across the Crusaders and then does that. And she kills a lot of them. And then she checks herself into the mental hospital. All that shit happens. She ends up meeting up with a version of herself it's her shadow. Use a Persona 4 term. Who's like, hey. And then Blackjack realizes the reason you're here and you're treating me like this is you're trying to keep me from something I did. I have to know. And she finds out what it is, was she killed a bunch of Crusaders. I did reread that section, like I said in the last chapter. I'm not entirely accurate, because it sounds like it wasn't a bunch of Crusaders, it was just one, it was Boing. I know that Boing survives that. So, Blackjack thought she had killed a kid. She attempted to kill a kid. You can argue like reason of insanity or whatever, but it's still a thing that happens, but it's not like, oh man, the death toll here was crazy. It might have just been 0, although Boing was very badly injured. But like I mentioned also in Prices, I know there's a chapter later where she meets Boing again, and they kind of talk about it, and Boing's like, no, I think you're a fucking piece of shit, and I hate you. You got my best friend killed because you're stupid, and then you ran into me, and you nearly murdered me. I don't think you're a good person, Blackjack. I think anyone out here who thinks you're a good person has a few too many screws loose themselves. And then in the epilogue, after they make a grand new society, she's one of the First Citizen was the name of the title. Because they're like, yeah, First Citizen Boing. Like, she did so many great things, but man, she was a vicious Blackjack hater and shit. I'm like, yeah, I don't blame her. My point is, during that conversation, I don't remember if Boing says, yeah, it was just me, or no, Blackjack. Like, I am the only survivor. You killed a lot of my friends, and it's not the first time you've killed one of my friends. So, I really don't know about the numbers. when I get to that conversation with Boing, we'll get that. Or again, I was kind of skimming that part of Lucidity. Maybe there was more. The way it was written made it sound like it was just Boing, but we'll see when we get there. But I felt like I had to go ahead and say, like, I've given Blackjack a lot of shit for how I remembered that scene. It's still bad, but I suppose maybe not. It's not quite as bad as I remembered it. Unless when Boing talks about it, it's like, oh no, it was. I remembered it exactly. So we'll see when we get there. The Maripony Orb, like I said, this was Twilight Sparkle. That's Blackjack's grate with a grandma with a whole bunch of grates in front of it. There's this one line when Blackjack is talking. I don't remember what the context was. She's like, "Man, is there some like sadistic being beyond the stars?" Fuck, I think I actually wrote it down. Like sadistic being beyond the stars, serving up bullets of misery and regret for me to walk through. I'm like, okay, that there's a few ways I can interpret that. One, that just sounds like Somber making fun of himself, which is pretty funny. It's like, what cruel, sick god would do that? Alternatively, I'm like, I don't think necessarily, but is that supposed to be like a reference to the Eater itself? That's literally a being beyond the stars. That's like, enervation, and I think it's got like this. I mean, the enervation's like the AOE field, but kind of like the Curse of Erebonia, where it's like made shit worse. Like I think that was a thing the Eater did. I don't remember. It's like maybe that's supposed to be kind of a shout out to the Eater. There's also this bit where they find a tank, which I'm pretty sure is the tank that Deuce ends up becoming, which I think is stupid. I will always think that's stupid. It's cool, but it's stupid. But again, there's this funny little interaction where P21 looks at it and just, you think we could get that working? No, there's no way. That's stupid. Looks at Glory. Wait, could we? I don't know. I got a good little laugh out of that. I think it's a fun scene. I was saying earlier, this is when P21 actually starts using explosive, which just becomes his weapons. Blackjack ends up having a nightmare where everyone's getting raped or killed because it's Project Horizons. That's just kind of how it be. She specifically mentions Glory getting her wings ripped off, and we're gonna get to that. Fuck, what is it? That's the tunnels. So that's near I think it's like halfway through or near the end of part 2. I know they've got Scotch at that point, so that's after 22. And I'm pretty sure it might be like right after Arena and like the fight with Whisper. I don't remember like what chapter-ish that is, because I think the whole crew is there, so I think it's after, or excuse me, I think that, yeah, it's before Blackjack and Glory are by herself, or themselves, and she like Lighthose saves her. Yeah, we haven't got to Lighthose yet. That's pretty soon is when Blackjack ends up going to the Enclave base. So we'll get that, and yeah, and Glory getting her wings ripped off and shit. So, getting into the kill count. Full transparency, I'm kind of on the fence about this one. There's one kill for sure, no bullshit, and that's Big Macintosh. Because now that we finally met him and seen him, I can add him to the count. Obviously, not a kill for Blackjack. However, the dragons. The way I have tried to do the count is in spirit of how Dead Meat does their normal kill counts. Which is, if something is human or kind of human enough, it goes on the count. If it's just a pure monster, it doesn't go on the count. Friendship is magic, and so Fallen Equestria as like adjacent to that is hard to do because it's not here's humans, it's okay, so here's the pony races, but also you've got zebras, which are a different race, but more or less just as human as the ponies. But then we also have shit in the show like Iron Will, who's not a pony, but is clearly a sentient character. But then we have things like the Hydra, which doesn't seem sentient, or like alligators, or the Timberwolves, which don't seem sentient. So those wouldn't go on the count. In Friendship is Magic, dragons are sentient. In this story, we have Spike, who is still a dragon and is fully sentient. I believe in the original story, the dragon that was working with God, Gawd. I always really like that spelling. I just think it's neat. I believe was a sentient character. I could be wrong about that, but I think so. I'm like, okay, dragons can't be sentient. The dragons she is fighting here, though, don't seem to be. They just kind of seem to be monsters. They're feral. So, like a feral ghoul, because I count feral ghouls, because even if they're not currently sentient, they still were at one point. Again, in like a dead meat fashion, zombies count because zombies were human and are still like human enough. So, I'm like, okay, I'm counting the dragons. I feel like, I'll admit, it feels a bit like a reach, but it makes sense to me. I will put it like this. With how the chapter is written and constructed, it doesn't feel like, are these kills that Blackjack should really feel bad about? Not really. I mean, to be fair, you can make an argument that a lot of Blackjack's kills she shouldn't really feel guilty about. It's just she has a big body count. But I also want to see how high she can get within reason. And I feel like the dragons are reasonable enough as creatures that are formally sentient, and everywhere else in the story seem to be sentient. So I'm counting the dragons. It's also a little iffy because Blackjack's like, all right, there's like 8 to 10 bars on my EFS, so I'm just going to say 10. So I'm saying 11 deaths in the chapter, 10 dragons, 1 big Macintosh. Blackjack herself got 10 kills, putting her at 95. She is doing work. Unfortunately, I mean, fortunately for Blackjack and her conscience, unfortunately for me wanting high numbers, we don't get a lot of kills in the next couple chapters, at least from Blackjack. I'm like, all right, she's gonna start slowing down. I think, given the fact, like, some fight moments, like battle, I don't know how many people she kills on the Celestia, or like some of the people that she kills, like with Folly. I feel like she's gonna kill a lot of people at Shadow Bolt Tower. There's a chance she can still get to 1,000. And when we get to the end with all the Zodiac clones, it really just determines, like, how sentient are they? Because from what I remember, they weren't, but if they are, that's gonna be big numbers. But 95 in 8 chapters, that's 8 times 12 is 96, I believe. So that's almost 12 kills a chapter. She's doing numbers. She's doing some work. As for the catchphrase counter, again, still no ante up. Red is dead. And this might be the last time we really hear it, is at 6. It's currently in the lead. Executioner and security saves are both at 1. I'm Not a Smart Pony is at 5. And I believe it's the next chapter where it's used like 5 times. So it ends up taking the lead here pretty soon. But that was chapter 8. That was Hard Road. Excuse me, no, I think that was Long Road, and then Walk the Hard Road is the end of book 1, which is the Deuce fight, which is fucking cool, and I love it. So that's where we're at. I'm starting to get caught up on my Project Horizons videos. That's 2 down, got 2 left to do. Maybe I'll do another one today. I would like to, I don't know. But that's it for now. I'll see you later.